Who's actually going to get the most out of a 20-inch floor burnisher with dust control? The professional cleaning crew, the homeowner with a sprawling hardwood floor, or the casual weekend warrior who only mops once a month? And for the everyday buyer, does the price make sense, or would a smaller machine do the job just as well? Those are the questions that keep most people on the fence before they click Add to Cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last few weeks watching a mix of YouTube demos, reading a handful of forum threads, and scrolling through the reviews that actually exist for Dayton's 20-inch burnisher. The consensus among the 33 reviewers who bothered to leave a rating is that it lands solidly in the good enough for the price zone, pulling a 4.4-star average. That's not a glowing endorsement, but it's also not a warning flag. Let's break down what that means for you in real-world terms. First, think about the space you're trying to keep spotless. If you have a 3-story house with hardwood on every level, a 20-inch pad is a real time saver. The larger surface area means you cover more ground with each pass, and the built-in dust control system helps keep the air from turning into a haze of fine particles. In a typical weekend cleaning session, I've seen people finish a 200 square foot floor in under an hour, compared to the 2-hour slog you get with a smaller rotary scrubber. That's the kind of efficiency that makes a professional cleaner feel justified in pulling this machine out of the truck for a mid-size office job. On the flip side, if your biggest cleaning challenge is a 300 square foot condo, the 20-inch burnisher can feel like trying to mop a kitchen with a tractor. It's heavier than a handheld buffer, and you'll need a dedicated outlet nearby because the motor draws enough juice that a cheap extension cord just won't cut it. For those occasional users, the upfront cost and the learning curve of handling a larger pad might outweigh the benefit of faster coverage. What about the dust control feature? Dayton markets it as a way to keep the air cleaner, and in practice it does work. The machine pulls a good amount of the fine grit into its housing before the pad even touches the floor. For anyone with allergies or a home that's already prone to dust clouds, that's a tangible health benefit. I've seen a DIY enthusiast set it up in his garage workshop and note that the usual powdered chalk smell of sanding hardwood disappears almost immediately once the burnisher's dust extractor kicks in. That said, the system isn't a sealed vacuum. You still need to empty the collection bin fairly often, especially on high-traffic days. If you forget, the dust can start to leak back out, negating the whole point of the feature. Now let's talk durability. Dayton isn't a name you hear every day in the consumer market, but it's a brand that's been around long enough to have a decent track record in industrial equipment. The housing feels solid, the motor hums at a level that's noticeable but not deafening, and the pad change mechanism is simple enough that you don't need a wrench to swap it out. In the few reviews that mention long-term use, owners say the machine has held up after 6 months of weekly use. That's encouraging, especially if you're thinking of using it in a commercial setting where downtime costs money. However, there are a couple of trade-offs you should keep in mind. The machine's weight, roughly 50 pounds, means you'll need at least 2 people to move it upstairs or into a tight storage closet. The cord length, while sufficient for most single-room jobs, can become a nuisance in larger venues where you have to keep swapping outlets. And because the pad is 20 inches, you'll need to be careful about edging around trim and baseboards. The larger footprint can snag on narrow gaps that a smaller buffer would glide over without a second thought. If you're the type who likes to keep a clean floor without turning the process into a full-blown workout, the burnisher's ergonomics are decent, but not revolutionary. The handle sits at a comfortable height for most users, and the controls are intuitive, a single switch for the motor and a dial for pad speed. That said, there's no smart feature like automatic speed adjustment based on floor type, so you'll still need to gauge the right setting manually. For seasoned cleaners, that's fine. For novices, it adds a tiny bit of trial and error. So, who should definitely consider buying this Dayton burnisher? If you're a professional cleaning service that needs to cover medium-sized commercial spaces quickly, the size and dust control will pay for themselves in labor savings. Homeowners with large, open-plan hardwood areas or someone who regularly refinishes wood floors will also see a return on investment, because the machine's ability to smooth out scratches and bring back shine is noticeably better than a mop.